Happy politics and welcome to yet another fun-filled edition of BC Poly Hot Stove after a 2-week break. I am Maclean K. I'm your host. I'm the editor-in-chief of the Mighty Orca. Welcome to, by the way, to my living room and son's playroom and office. I'm joined in a socially distant manner by...
I'm Jordan Bateman, Vice President Communications for the Independent Contractors and Businesses Association. Maclean, I tore myself away from the riveting Columbus-Tampa Bay game. I tore myself away from my riveting work in order to film this today. So,
Yes, all of Canada is experiencing what it's like for me every single U.S. Thanksgiving, only day after day after day. I opened up the top by saying we didn't do a show for 2 weeks, but speaking of 2-week breaks, well, I hope it's just 2 weeks at this point. When, Jordan, is school coming back?
oh boy, Maclean, be prepared for a rant here at some point today as I discuss this. So to recap, school was supposed to restart on Tuesday, September the 8th, the Tuesday after Labor Day, as has always been and always shall be. That is the day school starts. Usually it starts, if you recall, in fits and spurts with like an hour here the first day and 2 hours the second day, and then maybe they get around to getting kids in their classes, proper classes a couple weeks later. If you're a kindergarten parent, it's even less school that you get the first 2 weeks. It's a very gradual entry. However, the BC Teachers Federation set their hair on fire. They demanded to talk to Dr. Bonnie's manager, and Karen got her way. And now here we are, Rob Fleming today out of the blue, waving the white flag, surrendering basically to the BC Teachers Federation now, opening the door for a delay to the school year because teachers need to get in and have a few days to get ready. Maclean, teachers have been off for months. They've plenty of time to get ready. Businesses have gotten ready. I was in Metrotown Mall for lunch today. They're all ready. Different rules for different stores. Some have masks, some don't, whatever. Everyone follows the rules, it's all fine. Schools can do the same, and yet here we are, again delaying the single most important thing we can do to restart our economy, which is get kids back into school. The single greatest thing we can do for our children, which is get them back socially interacting with their peers and get them back learning from professionals who are actually trained to teach them, not their poor sad sack parents who are trying to balance 17 of their own Microsoft Teams meetings with the Zoom from the teacher and the, make the really fake, lame curriculum like bake some cookies and that sort of nonsense. I am livid about this. It flies in the face of what Dr. Bonnie's been saying for days now. It is the NDP kowtowing to the BC Teachers Federation and nothing else. There is no scientific evidence needed to back this up, to slow this down. It is merely capitulation to the most militant union in British Columbia.
You mentioned Dr. Bonnie Henry. It will be interesting. She's going to speak in about an hour and a half. That's obviously going to be the first question, regardless of what the case number is today, and I hope it's low, is going to be, so your advice with the school year doesn't appear to be being strictly followed. What's going on there? No. Dr. Henry is nothing if not a diplomat and a very intelligent woman, so I don't suspect we'll get a lot of fire in that answer. But it will be interesting, because this is the first time that there's been some successful pushback against Dr. Henry.
Yeah, it is interesting to see Dr. Bonnie get pushback for the first time. I'm trying to think of other situations. She had to bring John Horgan to heel when he said he supported drive-in concerts, and she then, unilaterally smacked him down by bringing in the limit of 50 cars, which was frankly arbitrary. And I think even she would admit not terribly based on science. We've seen a little friction from time to time, but Dr. Bonnie generally gets the benefit of the doubt, and I think with the public has the credibility, not the elected government. But this is troublesome to me on a number of levels. Look, this is the same government that in one breath floated the we should have an election this fall balloon. And, on the other hand is saying, well, maybe we don't need a fall session because, second wave and nonsense, maybe we shouldn't have a fall legislative session. And we need to get school started, which is a stance I completely agree with. But now it's, maybe we can push it back in a few days. There's never going to be a great time to start school. You push it back a few days, then the teachers will say, well, what about Thanksgiving? Thanksgiving Labor Day is a big time for when people get together. There could be lots of cases coming on Labor Day. We should wait till 2 weeks after Labor Day. Oh, well, we should wait till after Thanksgiving. Oh, we should wait until after Remembrance. Like, there will always be an excuse to stop. Teachers, I get it. You've been off for a long time. You haven't been in the building. The first time you go into a building, Maclean can tell you when the first time I went into the legislature, first time I went into our office, into Metrotown here, you feel nervous. You remember every bad thing you've read on the internet about COVID. you feel uncomfortable, you don't know the procedure, oh, what's going to happen. But guess what? You get through it real quick. And now I go and come into Metrotown, and I still take all the precautions, I still follow all the rules, but I don't feel unsafe, I don't feel unsettled. I feel actually very safe because I know the processes that are in place. The same will happen for you, teachers. Some of you are worried about the first day, I get it. But once you're there, you're going to see that this thing is going to work. Dr. Bonnie is not going to suddenly steer you wrong. It's not like she's been driving the province along just fine and is like, oh, there's a ditch, I'm going to go into it. It's going to be okay. You trusted her this far. It's time to trust her now. I know the union leadership is all riled up about this, but there are tens of thousands of workplaces open today in British Columbia where people are going in and out of in a perfectly safe and careful manner. Schools can be the same.
I wonder how much of this is exactly as you say, and I'm sure some of it with the union, but I wonder how much of it is also the ministry and Minister Rob Fleming feeling a little pressure because he had committed to, well, parents will know in July, by which became the end of July, fair enough. And then July 31st came and it was, where's the plan? And I wonder if they started, counting their chickens before they hatched and sending a press release without dotting the I's and crossing the T's. I think it's a bit of both. I think you're right. I think that this could be done a lot faster than it is and that there is no good time. But also it sounds like the ministry might have, I don't know. Certainly somebody has dropped the ball here.
Yeah, so, do we not suddenly trust Dr. Bonnie and her provincial health office team to come up with no, of course we do. Do we not trust WorkSafe to protect these teachers like they protect every other employee in British Columbia? Of course we do. It's just, honestly, I think it's Fleming just kowtowing to the BCTF, not wanting to have one more fight with them because, not shockingly to anyone who's followed the BCTF in British Columbia for many years, they fight with every government. And, Rob Fleming is no different. Listen, Maclean, prediction time. If these schools are not open by, say, September 14th, that's a Monday, September 15th, a week after they should be open, this will be the issue that starts the rapid political decline of the BC-NDP. The helium in the, John Horgan balloon will suddenly start to evaporate. This will be the reason why they lose the next election. Schools are vitally important, not just to the parents, but to the economic activity of the province. And there are many offices planning to reopen in September. And they, your boss, not your boss or my boss, but a boss is going to be like, I want you in on, Tuesday, September 8th. This is, we've done it. We gave you all 6 months. We're going to do this together. And I can't come in because I've, childcare issues, et cetera, et cetera. The very arguments the NDP like to tout for their childcare program, which has been an abysmal failure, by the way, no matter what Katrina Chen says or Ann Kang or whoever. It's Katrina Chen, I believe, is Minister of Safe Childcare. It's been an abysmal failure. But the same arguments apply, right? Like, you've got to have the children in school, first of all, for their social and mental well-being and then their academics, but also because it unlocks the economy, especially women who have been bearing the brunt of all of this for months now. It's not fair. It's not right. I get it. But it's just a fact of life, and study after study, including the province's own survey of hundreds of thousands of British Columbians, have shown it. So schools don't open on September, there may be some grace for that first week. If schools open September 14th and it's for an hour and then an hour the next day, you are going to see parents go bananas, and quite frankly, rightfully so.
Why you're going to see
why do I have to go to work? Why do I have to go to work and these teachers don't? That will become the climb. That will become the major push.
Well, we had similar, not exactly the same arguments with transit months ago.
Yeah.
We simply need it to run. We cannot function without it. Too many people require it to get to work every day. At that time, they were talking about healthcare workers. They need to get to the hospital. So yes, transit's got to keep running. This is much the same, in fact, on a much larger scale.
Yeah, look, my daughter is a 17-year-old who's been working throughout the pandemic at a grocery store, one of those much celebrated essential workers. It's time to get out from our little bubbles a little bit. You're still bubbled within a certain group, but, life goes on. We have to work. We have to go to school. This is so corrosive for children. I think back to the first time we ran into folks we really knew in Fort Langley when we were out for a walk. And our kids hid behind us like they were shy toddlers again. This is a 17-year-old, a 14-year-old, and a 10-year-old. They're not shy about anything. And their kids, who are a little bit younger, 10 and 9, hid behind them. And it was like this social awkwardness for the children, right? Like, oh, can I don't know, nervous. And it's because of the media. It's because we've been drilling into them, like, we got to stay 6 feet apart. We got to be socially distant, blah, blah, blah. All those important messages. But that is not healthy for children. That's not the way children are meant to be thinking and acting and interacting. And, Dr. Bonnie's right. Like, I have no time for people who up till now have been lecturing me on the need to follow every, dotted I and crossed T of Dr. Bonnie's commandments, and then whine and complain when it's their particular ox that gets gored and they have to go back to work. Like, who's Dr. Bonnie? What does she know? I mean, come on. So it's one or the other. Like, we're all in this. Let's do it. Let's get schools reopened. If this drags into late September, October, like, people will go bananas.
And there's no polite or fun segue into this next topic because it's something else that's getting worse, but these are serious problems. It came up in the Ledge today and this week, I should say, and in a very punchy and effective Les Lane column, I thought. Homelessness, the opioid epidemic, and crime are three things that the NDP very effectively in 2017 managed to convince people that they had the answers, that they would solve these things. It's been 3 years. All three of those things are demonstrably worse. The numbers simply cannot be argued with. At a certain point, as Les argued in his column, the NDP will not be able to blame 16 years because it's been 3, and again, things have gotten worse. What's happening here?
Yeah, I think I wrote about this a couple of weeks ago before
you did very well.
I took a few days off, and I think we talked about it actually on the last Hot Stove. But for years, the criticism was this was Christy Clark's opioid crisis. It's all Christy Clark's fault. It's all the BC Liberals' fault. You're so uncaring about homelessness. How dare you, Rich Coleman, suggest that you take people off the street and put them into treatment without their permission? How dare you not, find housing for these people? We could do better. That's what the NDP said. John Horgan said it. We can do better. We can do better. Guess what? They've done worse. The record is worse. More overdoses than ever before last month. Breaking the record that was set the month before. This month, not looking much better. Like, the numbers are terrible. Homeless encampments. Victoria, like, anyone who's wondering what's going on in Victoria, follow Adam Sterling on Twitter.
Oh, yeah.
I think they've broken him. Like, Sterling is, like, he's like the last man shouting into the wind, right? Like, it is unbelievable what's gone on in, Centennial Square? Is that what it's called there?
Right by City Hall there, yeah.
Right by City Hall.
But not just there, but yes.
And Beacon Hill Park, which is like the nicest park, the most famous park in Victoria, right? Like, unbelievable what's been happening there. Violence, and stabbings, and air gun shootings, and chop shops in environmentally sensitive areas. Like, horrible, horrible conditions. What we've seen popping up. I mean, George and Jody have a whole podcast dedicated just to this topic over and over and over again, right? Strathcona Park, and then before that was Crab Park, and before that was Oppenheimer Park. Like, this is horrible, horrible conditions. The NDP have failed miserably. They're still funding their much vaunted Minister of Mental Health and Addictions at a rate lower than they fund the Premier's office with all their flunkies and Jeff Megg slush funds. It is absolutely appalling that this is being allowed to occur, and it's occurring on their watch. Now, normally I'd be like, okay, look, you know what, Maclean, shit happens. Like, not everything is going to go smoothly for government. I get it. Let's find ways to work for solutions. Except these guys stood up for years and criticized the previous government and said they could do better, and they are doing demonstrably worse. And when Les Lane in the Times Communist comes out and shreds the NDP for their record on this isn't Jordan in the Orca. This isn't, whatever right-wing organization, shadowy Keith Baldry at night in Global BC. And, this is the friggin' Times Colonist shredding them for it. And rightfully so. It's abysmal. It's embarrassing. It makes you feel unsafe when you walk through these cities. The residents around Strathcona Park are just pulling out their hair. Jen Gerson's launched a new email newsletter.
Yes.
She's a former reporter. There's a great piece in there from the vice president of the Strathcona Residents Association or whatever. Fascinating, on-the-ground view from someone who, like you and I, Maclean, would really like to see these addicted people cleaned up, clean up their lives, make better choices, have the opportunity to make better choices, would really like to see homeless people in proper shelters. But at the same time, she's like, there's taping needles to railings, and, the local daycare had to clean 120 broken needles out of their playground. Like, this is appalling. And the NDP, I think, suddenly realized that they overpromised and are grossly underdelivering.
Well, these aren't issues you can care into submission. Unfortunately, they require some action that has not yet been taken. And I'm wondering. I mean, we're setting aside the social and, in fact, moral implications of everything, and just talking about politics. I don't know how much this will hurt the NDP in Victoria, where I am, because this is a pretty strong beachhead for them. But Vancouver, Surrey, Maple Ridge, all those places in the Lower Mainland that swung their way in 2017, I don't know. It's one thing to dismiss or try to dismiss a question in question period as, well, we inherited a mess and la, 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 la. It's quite another when you're being asked or when it's a media issue in the run-up to a provincial election saying, look, things are worse. Yeah. There's just no arguing. At that point, it'll have been 4 years. What's wrong? Where have you failed? I'm wondering what the political fallout will be.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be good for them. I mean, Oak Bay Gordon Head is a swing riding, which will be looking with interest at what's going on in the downtown Victoria core, and probably listens to the Adam Sterling show more than most neighborhoods in Victoria, I would imagine, judging by age and demographics. No offense, Adam. So you have that. You're right, the Maple Ridges have had a huge homelessness issue. And like sometimes questions the Liberals are asking are like perfectly valid. Like, hey, you're putting all these people into hotels without any kind of supports or without 24/7 supports. Could you just add 24/7 supports? Yeah, that sounds pretty reasonable, right? Like, okay, that makes sense. No. You don't understand. It's 16 years of BC Liberals. There's someone there to have a cup of tea with, which was a literal response, an actual verbatim response, should be verboten response from the minister, Selena Robinson, one of the very underperforming ministers in a cabinet full of them all of a sudden. These folks need more than a cup of tea. They need more than a cup of tea with some stranger. They need full-on help, interventions, care, and options. It's going to be a big deal in Vancouver Fraserview, which the NDP have to hold. Maybe a big deal in Vancouver Fairview. It's probably going to save Sam Sullivan's seat in Vancouver. It's going to open up. There are places. Surrey. I haven't seen the kind of encampments in Surrey yet. I'm not sure if that's because McCallum's doing something. It's entirely possible. Who knows? Or if it's happening and just hasn't hit the regional media because Vancouver and Victoria have had the more violent incidents. But yeah, it's not going to these are issues. WAC Bennett used to have a thing that you had to have 3 issues to run on. You had to have something for people's heads, so like a policy that made sense. You had to have something for people's pocketbooks, so a policy that would leave them feeling wealthier than they were before, and a policy for people's hearts. Well, this is the policy they ran on for people's hearts. And they have absolutely failed. So, the BC Liberals, that's an open door, and they should go charging through and really hold these folks to account and, come up with another plan. The amazing thing to me, Maclean, is you could double the investment in that ministry, and you're still talking about, a grand total of $20 million. This is nothing in a budget of $55 billion. I mean, $20 million is a lot, but not in the context of $55 billion for a priority that is absolutely destroying 2 of your showcase cities in the province.
The other thing that I think is an idea that might have some resonance is, look, the Supreme Court has ruled that if a shelter is unavailable, and often shelters are available, but for the sake of argument, if a shelter's not available, you have the legal right to put a tent up and sleep in a camp, a park overnight. You do not have the right to set up a permanent camp. In other words, you're supposed to take down your tent at 7 a.m. every morning. And where this rule has been adhered to and enforced, we simply haven't seen the huge spikes in crime and theft and some of the horrible violence. In the places where they have said explicitly we're not going to enforce it, and I'm thinking here about Victoria, just a couple blocks from where I'm sitting, it's been horrific. Yeah. And so at a certain point, I am wondering what the appetite is going to be to say, we are going to mandate that cities enforce this bylaw. That cities enforce this law. We can't, whatever the solution is, and I think you're right, it involves a lot more investment, but it cannot include permanent tent cities anymore. I don't know how many times we have to learn this lesson.
Yeah. And look, right now the NDP is still in blame mode. Oh, it's that evil Victoria Council. Yeah, full of left-wingers it's like an NDP friggin' farm team there, including the former colleagues of the current Minister of Education, Rob Fleming. So that's garbage. It's a lefty, Vancouver should do more lefty. It's a former NDP MP, a member of the NDP party in British Columbia. Candy Stewart is the mayor there. The park board, full of NDP farm team hacks. Like, this is their problem. And, they're going to have to do something. They won't want to do it. They're desperate to keep the mayors on side and not, look too heavy-handed and whatnot. But at the same time, they can't go into an election with these massive tent cities. All it takes is like some signs put up around these cities that say Horganville, and off you go, right? It's Herbert Hoover all over again.
Well, isn't that what they call the tent city in Vancouver? Is it Trudeau Kennedy or Kennedy Trudeau?
Yes. But I prefer Horganville, so we can we can do that. But look, Maclean, I'm going to give you a little secret. When you appoint a minister of mental health and addictions and create a ministry from thin air, you also create expectations.
Yes.
Putting a former member of the Communist Party of Canada in charge of that is a fascinating decision. It has proven to be an abject failure, whether it's funding or not. Like, they need to do something radical to change their fortunes on this file.
You and I have talked about similar things in the past. I don't think the people who run the NDP are stupid, but they do seem to have think that they could just care this problem away. Yeah. That was the problem. The previous government didn't care. That was the problem. We care. Done. We're going to create a Potemkin ministry with less funding than the less of a budget than the premier's office. Essentially, she's a minister of state in all but name. Are we surprised nothing's changed?
That's a great point. You're right. You can't care this way. Look, this is going to be hard for people to believe. But Christy Clark cared about these issues too. Terry Lake certainly cared about these issues. In fact, Terry Lake was given an award after he left office by a national organization specifically for his work on this file as the health minister under the so-called uncaring Christy Clark government. They cared. Like, you're right, you can't carry these issues. I've talked with Rich Coleman many times, a friend of mine. I know as Minister of Housing, he cared about this. They put millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars in investment into housing. And there's always more. There's always more. And so this is the problem. You're not going to be able to carry this away. Look, the opioid crisis is happening everywhere. What I find funny is the blame shifting now, right? Well, it's Lisa Help's fault. It's Candy Stewart's fault. Well, it's the Fed's fault. They should decriminalize or whatever. And Bonnie Henry very quietly in the middle saying, actually, yeah, you could do that right now. Like, you don't need the Feds to get involved. It doesn't have to be national. You could literally do that with a stroke of the pen right now. And Farney's like, oh, well, I can't hear you. Farnworth is, oh, these damn Feds, they got to get going. And she's like, no, you could actually change it right here. The blame shifting. Like, it always amazes me how these opposition parties come into power and then all of a sudden it's everyone else's fault, not the government's.
You're exactly right. This has been such a depressing and at times overwhelming topic. I feel the need to change gears into something that is affirming and uplifting and something that restores hope to this sad and depressed nation. And that is the fact that the Edmonton Oilers and Toronto Maple Leafs are no more.
Oh. I am so happy. Like, I have two favorite teams in hockey, the Vancouver Canucks and whoever's playing the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I think I speak for a lot of British Columbians in that. And there's nothing worse than a smug Maple Leafs fan. Like Dave Texera.
100% agreed.
I love the bits Dave Texera. Shane Mills, is he a Montreal or Toronto fan? I forget.
He is a big Toronto fan.
Big Toronto. These guys, they do fine work and they're fine human beings, except for this fatal flaw in their character where they have to cheer for the Maple Leafs and then rub your nose in it that they just happen to get lucky in a few ping pong balls and get a few stars. Listen.
And what is it they're rubbing your nose in? They're not the Yankees. They're not the Patriots.
They go out every year in the first round.
Failure. Yes.
Exactly. They go out every year in the first round because they are a flawed franchise with a fan base that are just, terrible people and don't deserve to have any joy. And I speak as a Canuck fan, so I know the feeling. Listen, nothing made me happier than when I saw a slowed down version. Okay, so the Toronto comeback against Columbus, that really demoralized me. I'm not going to lie to you. That game 4 was crushing. We go to game 5, they lose. They're never in it. The vaunted $30 million line does not, they're never in it. Columbus wins. And you're like, yeah, good job, yeah, F yeah, see you later, Toronto. Then they go the next day immediately into the lottery to get the prize, Alexi Lafreniere, the great winger, the next Taylor Hall. Like, this is the guy who's going there. Like, he's got Crosby upside maybe. Okay, great. Here you go. They got a 1 in 8 chance. There's a slowed down video of the lotto balls, Maclean. And you see the Maple Leaf ball go up into the hopper, bounce twice, and then fall, and the New York Rangers shoot straight up and get the pick. And I celebrated again because it was another great loss for the Toronto Maple Leafs. So,
and I agree with every word you just said, but I don't want to undersell the how much I'm enjoying the Edmonton Oilers misery. I'll be honest with you, if you're listening or watching. I'm from Calgary. I grew up in the era of 4 straight Stanley Cups and 5 straight Grey Cups at the same time when I was a small child in more formative years. So yes, you can appreciate that I have not yet forgiven those 2 franchises. And the fact that the Oilers have been gifted yet another generational superstar and wasting him, I'm sorry, no. I will give credit to the Edmonton Journal, who had who had the wherewithal to run a trolling story to say, okay, if we did win the lottery, how bad would that be? How would the rest of the league react? To which I thought, I think they should just burn it down at that point and say, yeah, you know what? No, we're not doing that. We're absolutely not doing that.
Edmonton is just brutal. You have McDavid and Draisaitl, 2 of the most gifted forwards in hockey today. You could roll them out as your 1 center and your 2 center, basically 60 minutes a game. They're out there, right? Like, and they still can't win. And it's because, guess what? Your defense sucks. And this comes from a Canuck fan who has to watch Oscar Fantenberg, for Pete's sake, and Jordy Ben. Like, I get it. But your defense is just atrocious. And I couldn't have been happier as well, seeing them get bounced. I couldn't believe I was actually cheering for Taves and Kane. That it was appalling to me. And yet, I know they're going to get theirs in this round. So bye-bye, Edmonton. Go enjoy the Rockies. I hear they're somewhere in your city limits if the promo videos are correct.
Sorry, Katie. Last thing I'm going to say about you mentioned Taylor Hall is the last thing I'm going to say about hockey this week. I saw a tweet that brought me more joy than any tweet has ever brought me. I think possibly in the history of Twitter. Imagine going back 10 years and telling an Oilers fan that the first playoff game that Taylor Hall would play in Edmonton would be in 2020 for a Phoenix Coyotes Nashville Predators game. Sometimes I just sit back and smile thinking about that one.
Oh, that's so perfect. Look, we didn't mention the Jets. I take no joy in the Jets losing. Yep. I love Connor Hellebuck.
Well, I mean, I do, but yes. Only because they lost to the Flames.
Right. That's fine. I take no joy in that. Connor Hellebuck, I adore him. And, those dirty Flames with the running that poor, nice Mark Scheifele into the boards. He's just out there playing hockey, a good kid, and gets taken out by that mean Kachuk.
It's an accident. That's a shame that happened.
It's amazing how many accidents happen.
The Jets are, I think, every Canadian's second favorite team, and we probably talked too much about hockey, but I think that's true.
Yeah, I think you're right. Any predictions, Canucks Blues? I don't feel great.
Canucks are in tough, but I mean, I'm more sanguine about the Canucks than a lot of their fans are. I think they've looked pretty good, aside from that one game against the Wild where they just seemed out of sorts. Yeah. But ever since then, I thought they were the better team. But I mean, the Blues are a rock solid team. I think the Flames have. I would suggest that is a series that may go the distance, just because they're 2 very similar sort of defensive-minded teams. They're going to grind it out. But if I'm being totally honest, I think it's going to be both the Canucks and Flames not making it to the second round.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. For the Canucks, I think you're playing with house money now, right? Just give the kids as much experience as you can, and I can see them stretching to 6. I can see Pettersson and Hughes taking over a game, and Markstrom stealing one, and I don't think St. Louis' defense is as good as it was last year.
That's true.
And it's that weird thing, right? Like, they've been playing meaningless games, St. Louis has, for months, or for 2 weeks, and done nothing for months before that, whereas the Canucks are coming out battle-tested. So if the Canucks don't win Game 1, this will be a very short series, I think.
You could be right. And when does that start? That
starts
today?
tomorrow night. That's
tomorrow night.
Wednesday. Wednesday. You know what? I got to say, Maclean, there was a lot of memes about where you were 10 years ago, last time the Canucks won a playoff series. For me, I was holding my then 3-month-old son, who, in his little, Sedin shirt and stuff like that, as we watched the evil Boston Bruins lay waste to the wonderful humans that were the Vancouver Canucks of that era. 10 years later, it's so fun, Maclean. Jack sits next to me. Like we watch every game together. He stayed up for overtime. Like he's totally into it. He's like he hates the referees' calls. He has his least favorite players on the other team. Like, he's a hockey guy. He plays hockey. He marvels at Quinn Hughes. He's like, Dad, look at Quinn. He did him. It's called a mohawk, where you got your blades going each direction and you kind of circle around. He's like, look at that mohawk. Oh, that's so sweet. And I'm like, oh, okay. But it is so fun to, 10 years later, I'm having actually more fun watching this series, I think, than I did maybe in 2010, although recency bias is probably a big part of that.
And to take a COVID angle on all this, I'm wondering how many infections that would have happened have not happened because there's an incentive to stay home and watch something, that's something new rather than reruns on Netflix. I'm not suggesting it's a lot, but it's not none. Yeah. And the NHL bubble system seems to be working.
Yeah, almost 10,000 tests and not a single positive one. Like, it's unbelievable.
Not one. That's astonishing.
You look at baseball, what a disaster, and they're canceling all the college football seasons. Like, it's amazing. So, you're right. Although I have noticed more and more pictures of friends, like they'll pull their TV out onto their deck and, they're all sitting outside in the hammock watching the game. And that's pretty cool too. I mean, I don't want hockey in August every year, but this year, this is a rare treat for us. Something good happening in 2020 for Vancouver Vancouver people. So let's just lean in and enjoy it.
And on that, I mean, I should mention this is the last week of session. Mm-hmm. We don't know if we're going to be back again this year. We weren't going to, I think, is what we were told unofficially that we would not come back in the fall. But, and I don't want to go too deep into this, there are two bills that are going to stall on the order paper and not make it through the end of this week, both because of amendments foisted on them by the opposition that they did not want. Yeah. And so I don't think they want those bills to die, which is what would happen. They can be put off until the fall, but they cannot be put off until the spring. When the lieutenant governor comes in the spring for a new throne speech and a new budget and all that, that is the start of a new session. And any bill that didn't make it through before then is finished, and they would have to start from scratch. Would it be a big deal? Not really. But it would be a symbolic defeat that I don't think they want going into an election year. So yes, I think we will be back in the fall, even if it's just for a week or two, to try and bring some resolution to that. But we'll see. I know that they're sorely tempted to not.
Yeah, so the two bills, one is let's take addicts off the street against their will and put them into treatment, which was
the other one is
exactly what they criticized Rich Coleman for all those years ago. And the other one is
the BC Hydro, tearing up the IPP contracts.
Yes. Which I think was a election promise of theirs, if I recall correctly.
It was indeed. But it didn't go over well with some First Nations who have made some significant investments and for clean power.
Yeah. Maclean, I'm old enough to remember when the NDP said contracts were sacred and you couldn't rip them up and you should go to the Supreme Court of Canada in order to get them protected.
That is a thing that happened, that was this was an issue that they seemed almost surprised by that people pushed back. So, this session that even the Greens found the wherewithal to say, yeah, you know what, no.
Even the Greens disagreed. That is how shocking it has become in BC politics. When is the Green leadership vote? Do we know?
I did know. It's not too far off. I don't have it in front of me. It doesn't matter. But the end is nigh.
Excellent. Well, I know we, as a citizenry, we wait with bated breath who will lead the Greens into the next election and into political oblivion.
I mean, it's hard because it's not a traditional leadership race. I've heard from some that Sonia Furstenau is a prohibitive favorite, but I've heard from others saying that that's not necessarily the case. But I still think that she probably is the odds-on favorite, but I guess we'll find out.
Maclean, if she doesn't win,
that would be awkward.
She may not run again,
I don't think she runs again if she doesn't win.
I was going to say, or she crossed the floor, but that seemed, her relationship with the NDP, I think, has deteriorated past that point now.
Yeah, they would forgive a lot, I think. But the thing is, let's say it's Jordan Bateman who wins the Green leadership. This will be the last thing we talk about this week.
What a world.
There are only so many places that, let's set aside the force and magnetism of your charisma and personality.
Thank you.
And just look at voting trends. We're gonna ignore that for the moment. Mm-hmm. Where is a prospective Green leader going to run where they're going to be competitive, right? I mean, if it's not Adam Olsen and it's not Sonia Furstenau and it's not Andrew Weaver, who I think won the seat in Oak Bay Gordon Head based on Andrew Weaver and not the Green Party, although that's a matter for debate. I mean, One of the favorites is Kim Darwin, and I guess she's based out of Powell River, Sunshine Coast, possibly.
They do
The other
have a
candidate, I
history
believe,
of
is from
they do
downtown
have a history
Vancouver.
of voting for fringe candidates, i.e. the shout out to our friends Judy Tabji and Gordon Wilson.
Yeah. I mean, other than that, I mean, Victoria has leaned green municipally and almost federally. And of course, Carol James won't be running, so I guess you could make an argument for there. But I mean, there are. I should have prefaced that by saying I'm getting into the realm of stretching.
And Adrian Carr and Pete Fry in Vancouver, municipal politics, so much of it is based on that individual name recognition, not the party. Otherwise, we'd have 11 green councillors, right? So I don't see a stronghold in any of those green ridings.
And if you look at the actual riding boundaries in the Vancouver area, there isn't one that suggests a possible green opening. I mean, the one that kind of makes sense.
They're not going to beat Dix.
Yeah. No, exactly. You're not going to beat Melanie Mark, or no one. You're not going to beat anyone in that riding.
Right.
Maybe Falls Creek, but I don't see it.
You would need a perfect vote split.
You would indeed. So, as I say, you're getting into the realm of luck.
Yeah.
And stretching. And so, if not Sonia Furstenau, and I think that's a difficult riding as well, it's hard to see where the next Green leader wins or earns their seat.
Well, they're going to sweep to power on a wave of green populism, Maclean. They're going to pick up 50 seats because if there's one thing we know about BC politics, whatever is the craziest thing that can happen is probably the most likely outcome.
And on that, I cannot think of a better line to wrap this up on. I'm Maclean Kay. I'm the editor-in-chief of the Orca. That was Jordan Bateman. He has got a very grand and impressive title at the ICPA.
I'm a Veep. I'm a heartbeat away, my friend. Much like Kamala Harris, I'm a heartbeat away from her presidency, just so you know.
That's true.
That's right.
That's true. We didn't even talk about Kamala Harris. We'll save that for, is it 2 weeks from now we're taping again?
We also didn't talk about the wrestler Kamala who passed away this week either.
Oh, man, James Harris. Yes, I saw him wrestle once or twice.
Yeah, those were the
so
days.
much. And now I don't know how to end it.
We need an after show. We need like a podcast after show for our really core people where we just talk about wrestling and hockey.
We'll call it the cool down. Hot stove, the cool down.
Yeah, we'll workshop it.
We'll workshop it. Okay. Until then, I'm at Maclean Kay. He's at Jordan Bateman. You can find us on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, anywhere you can find your favorite podcast, YouTube, and of course the mothership at theorca.ca. Until then, happy politics.